Mish Maralyn Crellin, as Bavaliamka Falcheriu dus a Hermach Shorje Shiaght Laa. This is Shiaght Laa and you're very welcome. I'm Maralyn Crellin. In this edition of Shiaght Laa, on Shiaght Laa and Heat Shore, Elian de Vardach, an island of poetry. Last Friday evening saw the launch of a book of poetry by David Callin, which he calls From the Nab. As well as poetry from his book read by David himself, the evening saw contributions from a number of the island's poets. And we have an opportunity this evening to get a flavour of what was a very enjoyable evening. Tomorrow, Friday the 29th of November, the Isle of Man Victorian Society will be hosting an illustrator talk in the Barbara Cottier Lecture Theatre at St Ninian's High School in Douglas at 8 o'clock. The presentation is called The Isle of Man, Home of Happy Holidays, and Tony Kane will be looking at how tourism came about in the island, with new hotels, places of entertainment, trams and railways, and everything else that went into making it such a successful and popular holiday destination. Access to the Barbara Cottier Lecture Theatre for both cars and pedestrians will be from Somerset Road. There'll be light refreshments served after the talk and an opportunity to talk to Tony Kane and discuss his presentation with other members of the Isle of Man Victorian Society. But it's not restricted to members and all are very welcome. Non-members pay £2 at the door. That's tomorrow evening, Friday the 29th of November. Tony Kane's illustrator talk, The Isle of Man, Home of Happy Holidays. Then on Saturday the 30th of November, Manx National Heritage will be hosting Fate Unknown, the search for the missing after the Holocaust. A free programme and exhibition at the Manx Museum in Douglas from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m, in which you can learn about global efforts to find the missing after the Holocaust, including connections made to the many Jewish refugees held in the Isle of Man during the Second World War. This is an event through the Vienna Holocaust Library and Royal Holloway, University of London. The Vienna Holocaust Library holds the UK's International Tracing Service digital archive, with millions of documents relating to the Nazi era and the Holocaust. Although it's free, you'll need to pre-book, which you can do online. The programme includes contributions by Dr. Christine Schmidt, the Deputy Director and Head of Research at the Vienna Holocaust Library, Dan Stone, Professor of Modern History at Royal Holloway, University of London, Elise Bath, a Holocaust researcher at the International Tracing Service, and Dr. Yvonne Cresswell, former Curator of Social History at MNH, who'll be looking at aspects of Second World War internment here in the island. It's free to attend, but as I mentioned, you will need to book in advance, which you can do online at www.manxnationalheritage.im. Manx National Heritage, all one word. www.manxnationalheritage.im. Or you can call the Manx Museum on 648 000. That's 648 000. Gerda Rau T. Brown and Dara Share ons cohira vardacht ons hockey jeg shactus died. Houds ve fosna inzadach gelage realium, a she in a shack blin je jeg der share. Harawe der in a sanmus of ege, de denke de ve mai enne me bad. Vacuus de henen ege en germach ons een Shiaght Vannin as buelella, ach harawe hidlio Betsy Lee, Court Mac Leorish Macmillan, der a hockey jeg 3 feet as 3 jeg, Trevic Brown of 8 3 blina as died dash. As Rashen Court Mac, gin cur an enemege me an uchte. Harawe der a hockey jeg carefeet as nain, Trehug Macmillan Mac na foksel yarns, de denke enemrish. As echt wat der yilem eller on, ons hockey jeg carefeet as shacht, as carefeet as nai. Gerda do it imedy sly, bardacht mu vanenrish tea brown, va fost hour a sec used to allow, de rawe of a gina crage tea vannin. Ni ai tan ober eg a fost yn ôl, as ti faracht yn dy chyr bryd slai o'n sio, ons Manning, dy sgriwn yn mad acht hyn. With frequent open mic sessions where people can get up and read their poetry, and poetry slams which are competitions for performance poetry, with monthly sessions held by the Isle of Man Poetry Society for people to get together to read and discuss their poetry, as well as printing poems in its twice-yearly publication Manx Reflections, and running poetry trails, with a series of poems printed on bright yellow posters in public places. Poetry is very much part of the Manx cultural scene. Last Friday evening, the 22nd of November, there was the launch of a collection of poetry by David Callin from the NAB, published at £10 by Culture Vannin. The launch was a very enjoyable occasion in the Peel Centenary Centre, when David read some of his own work and invited other poets to read theirs. So here is a taste of that event, opened by David Callin himself.
Friends, cousins, countrymen and women, vast am I. Thank you for coming out tonight. We've got the book. It was a damn close run thing, but I picked up some copies from the publishers today, and honestly the book looks great. The fact that the look is so good is down to Vicky here, who's done the cover for me, and she's done a fantastic job on this. And not only has she done the cover, but she's done 4 illustrations inside the book as well, which you'll see later when Vanessa coped with the hordes clamouring to buy a copy at half-time. And I haven't written this whole thing out. I've just got a series of prompts here. I just hope I remember what each prompt means. There may be a pause from time to time. But Vicky's work I first came across when she did the publicity for when Katie and her friend Lucy did a podcast, an award-winning podcast about Manx food and culture. And I saw the work that Vicky did for that. I just thought that was so good. I thought, well, I might use that if the time comes, and the time has come. And I'm glad I did use it. So thanks very much, Vicky. That was really good. And the fact that the cover looks so good, and the book is really nicely finished, that's down to Culture Vannin, because they've given me the funding to get it nicely done this time. And my book actually has a spine this time. The first book I did was completely spineless. And the guy in the British bookshop wasn't impressed. He said, this is my livelihood, I've got to sell these things. And it's just, it sat on the shelf like a damp dishcloth or something, so it just wasn't great. Now, my friends here, of course, fortified for a long dark night of poetry by a preliminary session in the creek, so they should be okay for the evening. Cousins, fellow poets, other friends, thank you so much for coming out. I've been thinking about my opening words. I found myself thinking of Lord of the Rings, actually, and at the start of Lord of the Rings, Bilbo has a long-expected party. Now, I could do the same sort of thing. I could say, my dear Callins and Cottines, Vicks and Curfeys, Fells, Newbies, Corlets, Carswells, Chapmans and Crennels. I also thought about Jake Thackeray, who I was a big fan of in the 70s and 80s, and he would often start off by saying, my name is Jake Thackeray, and I write songs about the human condition. And I could say, my name is David Callin, and I write poems about the Isle of Man and the human condition. Like this one, 1974, Douglas High School for Boys goes co-educational. The girls of 1974 did not have nicknames. They were Pat and Jane and Shirley, words of power made flesh, made almost palpable perhaps under favourable conditions, bringing with them alien musics and strangely scented air. Dazed I laboured under the new dispensation, a clamour of magpies, all requiring interpretation. I have asked a few friends in poetry to come along as guests, And the first of those is going to be James Franklin.
Chibber Ferrick, Peel Hill. Rising above the city, a brass band reaches over the neb unseen, from a street far away as I climb and further out along the narrow path, along before the vast edge of sea, drifting vaguely from a hazy distance to where the rocks of this world begins. If we knew gods, we'd bring them here, amongst the ardent ferns the bird calls resolute, unseen. Faith is not the same as credulity, inside, however the roots take hold. A pool in winter, wind-blown and dirty, we touch the water to our tongues, cool on brash hands. In summer and absence, a dip in the path, a well without water, a scar on the brew, a damp view west from where a saint once came. This is where miracles happened, faith once lived, offerings left, to gods, to other powers, because we are not the limit, but the limited. The sea a sound distinct from the blue, and I'm only vagueness amongst the green. We are all a different pilgrim, irresolute now in a pocket of silence, a holy well run dry, hungry in the land of God.
Time for another guest now. It's Hazel Teare.
Bury it. Should the past stay where it is? Historically it did. Friends and lovers parted, days together numbered by time and distance. Hearts broke and bled over tattered love letters, a faint aroma of romance permeating pages. Memories cherished, friendships neatly folded in hidden recesses, stowed away in the cerebral lost and found. Time spawned technology, a switched-on bloodhound, baying for buried data. Former friends and lovers float to the surface, but amongst treasure trove, dirty secrets and filthy lies fester like rotting corpses freed from stifling pondweed. Skeletons clatter from closets, beyond resuscitation, yet tainting the future with unwelcome intimacy. Should the past stay where it is? Historically, it did. Beyond
My next guest is going to be Doona.
On Bat Attic Saturdays, we made our matchbox farms. Fields of swan vestas interlocked, barns of Bryant and May. While sleeping on ancient beams, wings close folded by broken skylight, our troll-faced guests, and creeping from cool rooms, dark in paper layers, sweet with storage, the scent of pears.
What we haven't had much of so far is metrical rhyming poems. And here to put that right, shortly I think will be John Dog. And I thought I'd try and set the scene for that with one that is metrical and rhyming as well. And it's at the agricultural show. It was a big treat every year going to the show. Faces red from wind and rain, squeezed in unaccustomed suits. Call it Callin, quail, cane, mingle on the tented plain, acclamations and salutes. Faces red from wind and rain, stages in the long campaign, merry peasants, big galoots. Call it Callin, quail, cane. Men like this, they sweat and strain, dipping sheep and docking moots. Faces red from wind and rain, they take today to entertain themselves with frivolous pursuits. Call it Callin, quail, cane. Tomorrow they'll be out again. Man and nature in cahoots. Faces red from wind and rain. Call it Callin, quail, cane. Okay, John Dog Callister.
Billy the Communist. Billy lived in Higher Foxtel. It's just about the middle of our aisle. When he told them he was a communist, the locals would go up and just smile. If he said he was off to Russia, Moscow would be where he'd call home. So he went down to Foxtel station and told them he was off on a roam. This is a long time back, by the way. I want a ticket to Russia, he said. First class, I think it should be. You'll have to go to Douglas, he said. It's no good you asking me. So off to Douglas went Billy to the steam packet desk. What's the fare? I want a ticket to Russia, he said. How soon can you get me there? You'll have to go to Liverpool, he said, and tell them what is your aim. In line 3, they told him London's next, then Paris by boat and by train. In Paris, he asked them in their best French, "Je want to go to Moscow." Allez vite sur le train, he was told. The long way was how he would go. He went via all sorts of places. Each time he'd say, "Russia's for me." He eventually arrived in Moscow. This is just where he wanted to be. "I'm a communist," Billy would tell him, but nobody there understood. Billy was talking Boknad to them. Boknad is rubbish, by the way. Boknad to them. So doing the best that he could. After some weeks of hanging around, locals not knowing his tack, he decided communism wasn't for him, and he thought that he would head back. He went down to Moscow station, because our Billy was a bit of a goer. "I want a ticket to Foxtel," he said. And the teller asked, "Higher or lower?"
Thanks, John. Higher or lower is one of my favourite last lines of a poem anytime. The first time I heard that, I thought, how's he got that so right? That was so good. Stacey, you want to come up?
So this is called A Walk in My Village. Today I walked the old paths in St John's, the shortcuts which are so much longer in my memory. The old railway bridge is clear now, no screening hedge of tangled ivy or briars and bushes to battle. There's no sign of our den, the beaten-up sofa, beaten, liberated, dragged and carried, pushed uphill and crowned social hub. It pulled us all together. It lives elsewhere now. The grass is mown between railway line and forestry board. It's beautiful, not like it used to be beautiful, not wild or mud and unseen puddles. Now ferns riot elsewhere. The secret path is still there though, scuttled chicken wire leading us by to lounge under low fanning branches, mossy and snug. It looks well worn. I hope others still go. The bungalow is the same, home, lacking a barbecue today, hosting a chair we don't sit in, ever. Like everything else here, it's the same, but not quite right.
Thanks, Stacey. That's great. This deserves a bit of alliteration. He's mild, he's mellifluous, he's marvellous, he's Michael Manning. Hope you come, Michael.
You plummet, following the laughter of the water, joyous and down steep, down rocks, down creeks and gullies, down drawn from the heights of Barul, down to the depths, down deep, down stone, down past the waterfall and the mist anointing your head and the fine fern fronds, down. When you reach the shore, all the roar of all the world is gone. The stream whispers soft its last life to the sea, and the sea sings salt and sorrow and strength, the supple stories of the storms and the shimmer of the vast ocean and the vast horizons and the torn tenacity of the tender promise. Stay and listen, linger. Then turn and climb.
I've got my list of prompts here, and this next thing says, best thing about me. Where to begin, I don't know. I think a lot of people think the best thing about me is my wife. And I tend to agree with them. But James mentioned the Isle of Man Poetry Map Prize. I didn't know it was a competition, I just sent a poem in, and then later got an email saying, you won the Isle of Man Poetry Map Prize. I didn't know it was, as I say, a competition. I'm obviously excited. I went to tell Vanessa. She keeps me grounded. This is where I tell that story. Yes, you're right. And she said, oh, I better read it then. And she read it. And she said, well, at least it's mercifully short. So, and now my final guest. She's not just a poet. So I've written a lot of descriptive nouns down here. Playwright, composer and arranger of music, maths scholar, teacher, retired in brackets. I mean, we've had some great bards here tonight, but there is a sense in which Annie is the one true bard, I think. And this takes me back to Tolkien and Lord of the Rings again, and I think of that damn ring. One bard to rule us all. One bard to find us. One bard to bring us all, and in the darkness bind us. It can only be Annie Kissack.
With David's poem on preparing a wren pole. So on the wrenny theme, here's one of mine called A Suggestion of Wrens. All the yellow leaves have dropped by now, the hawthorn's thinning, fuchsia lingers brown. Outlined sharp on the gate for a blink, a wren glimpsed through glass where early sun strikes sycamore. One wren, much fluttering, might there be more? New light makes new shapings, shadow passing places, ivy pathways, tunnels busy with the dash of small birds. New light presses upon old bark, makes visible the wings that flit through criss-cross canvas. There she is, on the broad branch, the crooked branch, the gate again, her rumours in the ivy, her quivering in long grass below the hedge. Is it the one wren only, or the suggestion of many that disconcerts my morning mind, conjures up those tiny phantoms darting out of sleep?
This last one is, I don't know what year it was written, but it was definitely on the 24th of August, because Helen and Bill and Vanessa and I were walking on the coastal footpath. I think we were going from Port Greenock towards Santon Gorge, so walking clockwise. When we had saints, and saints had days, this was St. Bart's. High-pitched hay went slowly home on groaning carts. It is a sweet spot in the calendar, out of summer's pockets, winter's provender. Cormorants, or is it shags? Finial the rocks. In the meadows, grasshoppers are knitting socks. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Good night.
David Callin, whose guests that evening were James Franklin, Hazel Teare, Doona Williams, John Dog Callister, Stacey Astill, Michael Manning and Annie Kissack. From the Nab is available now from Culture Vannin and bookshops throughout the island at £10.
Tivo, Tivo, Princess of the Ocean. Tivo, Tivo, Ben Prince Namara.
They're the voices of Olivia and Nora, introducing the two versions of a film which has been co-produced by Culture Vannin and the Gaelic Broadcasting Committee. It's written by Olivia and Nora, who are pupils at the Bunscoil Rilgach, and it's their version of the traditional story of, as we heard, Tíval, Ben Prince Namara, Tíval, Princess of the Ocean. Olivia and Nora tell the story as they act it out against a backdrop of Niarbel, wearing special costumes, including wonderful papier-mâché heads. It was filmed by Dario Leonetti of Alt Lodge Co. Olivia and Nora wrote their version in Manx, and the film is available in both a Manx version and a version in English. The film is just short of 4 minutes, and it's really good fun, so go online and find it now. You can find both versions at the Culture Vannin website, www.culturevannin.im. Moilia Solia de Olivia as Nora.
Tíval, Tíval, Princess of the Ocean. Tíval, Tíval, Ben Prince Namara.
Tashenka Leshin dus Jerry Shiaght Laa and Kiatio. In fact, that's it from this edition of Shiaght Laa and from this series. From me, Maralyn Crellin, Sled and you,